Good evening once again. I am Stephanie Ruhle, and check your calendar because it is time for the midweek nightcap. We are 264 days away from the midterms, and Capitol Hill remains consumed by what has been revealed in the Epstein files, as well as by the Justice Department's handling or mishandling of them, which brings us to Attorney General Pam Bondi. Today, she testified before the House Judiciary Committee. This was her first appearance before the panel since the DOJ said it released all documents related to Epstein and co-conspirator Ghislaine Maxwell. Many lawmakers hope to hear some new details on the Justice Department's investigation into Epstein, but it was no surprise. The hearing quickly turned explosive, with Bondi on the attack, defending her leadership at the DOJ, and again, praising President Trump. Watch this.
To the survivors in the room, if you are willing, please stand. And if you are willing, please raise your hands if you have still not been able to meet with this Department of Justice. Will you turn to them now and apologize for what your Department of Justice has put them through with the absolutely unacceptable release of the Epstein files and their information?
Merrick Garland sat in this chair twice.
Attorney General Bondi.
No, can I finish my answer?
No, I'm going to reclaim my time because I asked you a specific question.
How many of Epstein's co-conspirators have you indicted? How many perpetrators are you even investigating?
First, you showed it. I find it.
How many have you indicted?
Excuse me. I'm going to answer the question.
Answer my question.
No, I'm going to answer the question the way I want to answer the question.
No, you're going to answer the question the way I asked it.
They don't like the answer, Chairman.
My time.
Because it's honest.
Reclaiming
so he asked a 4-minute question.
Restore 45 seconds, Mr. Nadler, please, Mr. Chairman.
Answer.
You can let her filibuster all day long, but not on our watch. Not on our time. No way. And I told you about that, Attorney General, before you started.
You don't tell me.
Yeah, I did tell you because we saw what you did in the Senate.
You're a lawyer, not even a lawyer. Wexner's name was added back.
Within 40 minutes of me catching you red-handed.
Red-handed. There was one redaction out of over
listed as a co-conspirator.
And we invited you in. This guy has Trump derangement syndrome.
Will you commit to publicly providing the unredacted version of this so that the American people can understand the extent of Donald Trump's lies about his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein?
You're about as good of a lawyer today as you were when you tried to impeach President Trump in 2016. Have you apologized for that in 2019? The Dow is over $50,000. I don't know why you're laughing. You're a great stock trader, as I hear, Raskin. The Dow is over 50,000 right now. The S&P at almost 7,000. And the NASDAQ smashing records. That's what we should be talking about.
Let's bring in our nightcap. Evan McNorris-Santoro is here, reporter for Notice. Pablo Torre, ESPN analyst and host of the Meadowlark Media's Pablo Torre Finds Out podcast. My friend and colleague Steve Leisman, CNBC senior economics reporter, and Josh Tarangill is here. He has the current cover story for The Atlantic. It is all about AI, and it will terrify you. Josh, let's turn to you first. For those of us who remember Pam Bondi's performance before the Senate back in October, this was deja vu.
Yeah, I mean, look, my first takeaway is she's real good at being Pam Bondi. Like, I know it's outrageous. I know that she shows up and is wildly insincere. She has no intent of really doing anything. But she has one viewer, and she knows what he wants to see. And so she delivered on that one thing. And listen, you can get a lot accomplished in life when you have no shame. And she has no shame. And so to sit there under oath and not answer questions, but to make this performance work, she got what she wanted to out of that day.
But Trump campaigned on the Epstein files, and it was like this time last year, she was out there saying, I'm reviewing the client list.
Yeah. Thomas Massie is the guy that I cannot help but like smile at when I see him pop up in that video. Because this dude is like, talk about like an economic indicator. He's like, I see how this is going to go. I see what Pam Bondi is doing, who she is playing to, and I'm going to be the guy who says this is crazy as a Republican.
a real Republican.
It's a remarkable thing to have that lane so wide open, and the fact that it's not crowded is why Thomas Massie can team up with Ro Khanna and do this Epstein Transparency Act and be this truth teller that will pay dividends politically. Like, we know how this is going to end. That is horrific. The theater of this is so horrific. The tape of it is so good. I would have watched an hour more of that. But we know how it's going to end, and Thomas Massie's like, yeah, I'm going to sell on this, and I'm going to reap the benefits personally.
But isn't that the absurdity of only performing for a party of one? She's the Attorney General of the United States of America, and she's out there touting stock market performance, calling Donald Trump the most transparent president ever. He might like that, but he's losing in popularity by the day.
Pam Bondi's performance in front of Congress is 100% emblematic of the constitutional crisis this country is going through. I am old enough, Pablo may even be old enough to remember, when secretaries, attorneys general sat before Congress and treated both sides with respect. And the reason they treated them with respect is because they would eventually going to need Congress for things like funding, for things that Congress would have to approve of. But when you have an executive branch that doesn't go to Congress for funding, that doesn't need any approval from Congress, Pam Bondi can act that way. So the reason she's able to do this and treat the Democrats this way, even in some senses treat Republicans this way, is because we're having a constitutional crisis in this country where Congress has no power at all over the executive branch.
Do you think the DOJ's handling of the Epstein files will have consequences come the midterms?
Well, I'll tell you, we have a story coming out in Notice tomorrow about Democrats and how they are figuring out how to talk about this on the campaign trail. It's going to be a great story. It talks about John Ossoff, who's running for Senate in Georgia, has figured out how to weaponize this Epstein thing against the Trump people. This is a problem. The problem for Bondi is that she walked into that hearing on defense and she walked out of that hearing on defense. This did not turn the story at all for these people. And this is what Trump has to deal with, is he has to figure out a way to make this story no longer about how his Justice Department kind of messed this up from the very beginning and turned off a lot of its own supporters with this, with this topic.
She did say, though, that there are pending investigations about people who may have conspired with Epstein. Do you buy that? Like, do you actually think there's going to be some follow-up there from the DOJ?
I don't know for sure. Obviously, we don't know what the DOJ is going to do. I do think that there is some actual hunger for some more investigations, for example, of like the Clintons, who are going to be talking to the House Oversight Committee very soon. Like this thing began, the idea of this thing in the beginning was that it was going to take down political enemies. First it was political enemies of the right. Now there's some ideas to take down political enemies of the left. It's a very difficult story, like in terms of the actual legalities of it, like what they can prove, what they can actually, do to people. But this problem of it has turned now to become a political problem for Trump. He has not figured out a way to weasel out of that, or to wiggle out of that. It just keeps flopping around.
It's because the dog caught the car. Like, the deep state are the people who said there's a deep state. And, not to mix too many metaphors here, but the dog caught the car, and the car is full of Epstein files. And it's like, oh, no, we never wanted to catch this. This is a horrible mistake. And now Dan Bongino is on Fox News talking as if he didn't see it. I mean, it's all of it from the top down is in some ways complicated, but in other ways just obvious. We know what's happening.
And Epstein, the most horrible man in modern history, may be the person bringing us together. One person that did surprise me today was Jim Jordan. Jim Jordan always plays the role of a
Yeah, I think, as Pablo said about leading indicators, that's, look, you got to watch which way the wind blows, and there are a couple people who are really good politicians, and when they begin to just retreat a tiny bit, that's worth taking notice of. So, yeah, I saw that too. I was like, oh, wow, that's strange. He's listening. He's enforcing rules. He's not using his chairmanship as an opportunity to berate them. Like, I would be a little bit worried about that if I was Trump.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
I'm not following this piece by piece. I feel a little bit like, as an outside observer, the zone is flooded with so much information that it's hard to focus. If the original hope of the Democrats was to pin the Epstein files on Trump, is that there? Is that out there definitively in a way you can say, this guy did all of these terrible things, and it's proven right there. I just don't. I read a lot of stuff,
There's not
and half of the stuff is AI generated, so I don't know what's real.
There's not a smoking gun that said Donald Trump did X or Y.
Point,
now, one could argue his name is in there a million times. Listen, just because his name is in there doesn't necessarily mean anything. And we all know that Donald Trump doesn't use email. However, he's the president of the United States. He campaigned on releasing these files, and he is going everywhere, nowhere, and around in circles to ensure that the American people don't see this. So the question is, why, Mr. President?
But that was the question before.
No, so I think there is a lot more to find out in terms of what else is in there.
And will he let us?
But the cover-up, which is actively happening in front of us, is what is so suspicious. Like, if it's not something you're worried about, why are you behaving like it is the biggest thing you're worried about?
You know,
the cover up.
But there is one difference, which is we now, before you would say there's an Epstein file and it was an abstraction.
Yeah.
Now we know the number of documents. And so you can actually work backward from an outcome. And so when people say they released X, they're very good at the math of saying, well, that's not even close to Y, which is the entire file.
damaging to a lot of people, right? Elon Musk has been completely obliterated, really sort of credibility-wise, not that he had that much to stand on for a while now, by this, right? A guy who's like, I would nothing to do with this. I'm not in this at all. And then there he is right in there, right? Howard Lutnick, right? A guy from the Trump administration. They've got a real problem with this guy. This is a real political liability, what he said versus what is in the documents.
And we don't know that he did anything inappropriate, but we do know that within the last 6 months, he looked straight in the camera and lied to the American people, and he's a cabinet member.
But I've said this a bunch of times to people that I think that birthday book revelation is one of the biggest things I've ever seen happen in American politics. And this is a thing that it's just because we talk so much about, no, there's one document that's going to prove everything. A lot of things have been proven. And you talk about folks are sort of like not seeing everything here. Right? There's a lot of stuff happening. Right. I think that's true. But the story arc is put together is not good for the people who are in power. I think that's
agreed. But they're resigning all over the world. But not here.
Well, hold on. But what we're seeing, though, are the contours of a social network in which all of them were friends in this way that is now documented. Trump may not have committed a crime, and Lord knows you haven't seen all the files, but he's actively friends, writing, drawing illustrations at these events.
Here's what I know. I'm going to keep covering the jobs report because that's a safer place for me to be.
That's not going to go viral stuff.
I don't want it to go viral.
But the obviousness, right? So why is Jon Ossoff now this sort of eminent political figure? It's because he's saying this term I've also heard Ro Khanna say, the Epstein class. Right. You're not running against a party, you're running against a network of people that embody the thing that Trump actually ran against when he won.
And isn't that almost not more consequential than one big explosive document, but this idea that the richest, most powerful people in the world, in every single industry, in every vertical, operate with totally different rules and immunity when it comes to wrongdoing.
Yeah, and the reason that impacts politics is that, we all look back at Dan Quayle and laugh, but Dan Quayle coined a phrase that stuck with us politically for 40 years.
No one is going to remember what that
is. The mind is a terrible thing.
No, it was the cultural elite. He said, I am proud to be scorned by the cultural elite. And that defined the opponent for Republicans for years. Well, what if it turns out you are the cultural elite? And so part of what the Epstein file flips is like, to your point, they're all down there. They're all trading favors. They're all easily glad-handed by a guy who's actually not terribly charming, but has access to money and can get you to meet, introduce you to this. You want to meet the college counselor. And so they're all a part of it. And so that's the cultural piece that I think you're talking about. Is like, that is stronger than whatever may else emerge and whatever million pages come, is that, no, that was the lie. And it's really tough to come back from that.
And X's and O's wise, the reason why this is falling on Trump, because there's plenty of Democrats who are in these files and are getting in trouble all the time, right? Democratic figures, Democratic thinkers. The X's and O's are, if the president had not called this a hoax, and if Pam Bondi had not said there's nothing in this, right, this is all over with, they wouldn't be in this position. They were elected. They came in on this like, this is our story. We own this. We're going to release all this stuff, and we're going to take down our opposition. And then they said, actually, there's nothing in here. Don't worry about it. And this has led to a problem where now they are sort of hoist on their own petardism.
I really like the prettiest young girl you had here last night, and that person's name's redacted.
Yeah, look, I interviewed the former Democratic Congressman Tom McMillan, three-time congressman who is in the files as a guy who was just friendly with Epstein. And you give someone the opportunity to say, what is this? Why were you here? And his response was symptomatic of, I think, a lot of responses, which is, I don't remember that, didn't happen, this is nothing. In reality, if the answer was from the start, I am horrified to learn that a guy I trusted with the most sensitive information about me as a friend was victimizing scores of young women. Well, that is something that I will never live down, and I will work the rest of my life to make that right. No one says that. They all say, "Oh, Jeff." Again, the financier. Like it's the joke. The joke is the real thing.
Leon Black, one of the most successful people on Wall Street ever, saying, "I just really needed that tax advice from that guy." I mean, are you?
But if it rains on the cultural elite, doesn't that break both ways equally against Democrats?
It does,
and
except Democrats didn't campaign on the fact that the Epstein files needed to be exposed because the bloodsuckers. Because remember, this is all going back to QAnon, which Evan reported on very, very well back when we worked together at Vice News. This is all from that same seed, which is you are the victim of an elite conspiracy. You are.
And there are very powerful Democrats getting hurt. Where's Larry Summers right now? Nowhere. Everybody is sticking around. Coming up later in the show, how Americans competing at the Olympics cannot seem to shake off the politics happening here at home. But first, right after the break, the president threatens to block the opening of a new bridge